Black Cat Lounge is sponsored by Beacon, a home for those who have a passion for filmmaking and the unusual. The Haunted Hiddensdale House. Those who walk there do not walk alone. Paraware, apparel for the action-seeking paranormal investigator. Dragonfly art and soul for all of your magical, metaphysical, and spiritual needs. Mystery Control, your go-to feed for science, magic, true crime, the paranormal, and so much more. Niagara, one of the top rated destinations in Western New York. The Black Cat Lounge is part of the Paraflix Entertainment Network. Buddy Tim Shaw here. It's so great for you to share your evening with me. I'm so thrilled that you're here. We've got a great show for you tonight. And you know what? It is so wonderful. It's so wonderful that I have the freedom to explore different genres and different formats and all sorts of great things. The subject matters. And I have been able to go over the years, and I've been able to cultivate and network with some really top shelf, unbelievable people, and I loved it. I'm just so blessed by it. But speaking about blessing, we do have another sponsor that I always like to bring up. It is the one and only Dark Moon Press. Dark Moon Press for all of your occult, your darker, sometimes mysterious, all of your reading needs. Really great. My friend Corvus Nocturnum, Eric Werner, is the publisher there. And they will be publishing my next book, guys. So it's going to be fantastic. So anyway, guys, I want to thank you all for just hanging out and just like being interested in this unbelievable subject. This is a topic that is scary. And I'm going to just put up a disclaimer right now. It's going to get a little... I don't know how to even describe it. It's going to be just, I would say, just a little discerning. Just going to be a little crazy because of the fact that we're going to be talking about murder. We're going to be talking about dismemberment. We're going to be talking about things of that nature. We're going to be talking about the serial killer, the late Jeffrey Dahmer. Now, tonight, I just want to go and I just want to let everybody know that this gentleman, I am so thrilled that this gentleman decided to come on the show. I had a guest, and my original guest for tonight, we were going to talk about something similar, but he got very, very ill. And my guest tonight, all I did was just ask him. I just said, would you? And to his credit, he jumped in. He jumped in without even thinking twice about it. And I gotta tell everybody that this guy is amazing. You sit down and you talk to him. I'm gonna tell you what he brings up. Shivers that the hair of my arms go and they rise. So you know what? I want to go and introduce someone who is just he's an amazing person. His show is Profiled with Thomas Patrick. You can see him on YouTube and you can see him all over the place. He is also, I love his stuff on Instagram. If you ever go on, Instagram, and I think TikTok he's on too. It's like he's got this great morning little bit that he does where he brings out something strange and unusual, and people go and are like, oh my God. I mean, I sit there, I look so interesting, and it's offbeat. And I'm going to tell everybody, come right out and tell everybody that this guy is a former profiler for the Florida Corrections. Institutes, and he is just someone who is an authority on this topic. So, guys, let me introduce to you someone who I am just so happy and so thrilled and honored. I am honored to have him go and say, "Yeah, I'm going to hang with you tonight." Please welcome Thomas Patrick to the Black Cat Lounge. Tom,
What is
how are
up,
you,
my
my
friend?
Oh my God. I am so excited. Look, I mean, I got goosebumps. I feel, you know what? I feel like a little kid, being able to go into my first haunted house. I mean, this is an amazing, this is an amazing show. And it was so, let me tell I got to tell everybody that it was so funny because when I emailed you and I said, geez, can you do a fill-in? I would love to have you come back on the show. And I will tell you that on Paraflex, our last show together was really one of my highest rated shows on the streaming, so the streaming platform. So, I mean, thank you so much. For people really seem to really enjoy this. And I have to go and I have to bring up the fact that, well, this guy, when I asked him, I said, you know what? You pick a topic, whatever you want to talk about, because, I am so just thankful that you're going to come on. He goes, just writes back, Dahmer. That's it. That's all he wrote. Okay, you talked me into it. So tonight we're going to talk about Jeffrey Dahmer. So first, before we go on, let me just ask you this. How the hell did you get interested in deep diving serial killers? Now, I know it was part of your job before, but what brought you to this part? Because it's like, wait a minute, now I have to analyze you. So I see just how off center you are, that got you involved in this.
I really just my career, but even before that, I always looked at it as we talk about serial killers, we learn from them, what they did, what the catalyst was, why they became who they are.
Right.
But a lot of times we don't look at the victims either. We don't profile the victims and why they become victims on top of that.
Yeah.
But as I learned and I studied, I think the reason why I come on shows like yours and all that is so people don't become a victim. So they could see the red flags, or our school teachers, our
Mm-hmm.
parents, or our families seeing some parents that, may not be parenting properly, to see it. It takes a village. You have to be able to see these things. And for me, talking about it, it might set somebody off to say, hey, I saw that. Maybe I should get somebody some help, and hopefully it could turn around. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it just takes somebody to show they care. And that's what happens.
It's so funny because I shouldn't say so funny, but I think it's sad that we have to always watch. We have to really be careful. And in this day and age, uh, I am, when I leave, I'm almost hyper vigilant, because I'm always looking. And it's not that I'm distrustful, but I find that a lot of the problems that you run into, a lot of the, uh, you know, I would say, I would say that you where you feel that you're most safe may be where you're most vulnerable, and that's why I've always had like a fascination for the serial killers, and I always wondered how they came into being, how and why, and what type of people they are. And I mean, we had Richard Estop on here talking about the Fox Hollow Farm murders, which is just a scary thing. And I'm gonna one of these times I want you to come on and I want to get your take on it because it is amazing. But let's talk about Dahmer. Uh, what happened? What was he like as a kid?
Well, that's the big thing. That's where it really goes. And I think a lot of people see him later on in life, but
Yeah.
they really don't understand. There's a thing that we talk about, especially with my group Wardruna. It's that DNA, how it follows from, your ancestors, from people to people. It goes generation to generation. You really
Yeah.
have to look at the dynamic. His mom was mentally ill.
Right.
She, had depression. She would lay in bed and all that, and never really nurtured Jeffrey when he was younger. And the dad was trying to continue with college and trying to help and raise everybody where he wasn't around either. So when you have that storm like that, where neither parent is there, there's that abandonment feel, as you can
Right.
see. You have that abandonment feel at such a young age. And from the time he was born, and they really see a pinpoint where they felt he was a happy kid.
Right.
But when he turned 4, he had a double hernia surgery. But then everything went downhill after that for him. And it's tough because a lot of people don't understand is, when you're at the age of between when you're born to about the age of 7, that's when 7's usually when critical thinking kicks in, where you start putting stuff together.
Right.
Sometimes it starts earlier for big kids because the trauma they're witnessing, they witness this trauma and all. And with that trauma, they grow up a little too quickly. They start seeing things and all that. They start developing a little too early. And that's where things start going haywire. Because the thing is as a kid, as you get older, and when critical thinking is supposed to kick in, your triangle starts. Kids keep it very easy,
Yes.
where their
Yes.
main thing is they want to be safe, they want to have friends, and they look for reward. Sometimes those are off. You really look at it, you how am I going to get reward? How am I going to be safe? And I think in this situation, Jeffrey Dahmer at such a young age needed safety, but nobody there to teach him what that was. And it put him into a fantasy world that I don't think he ever escaped out of at that young age. And I think as it developed, he developed it, not healthy. And when those things, as you start going, and
Hmm.
with that, with anything, when one of those three is off, it creates more problems with the other ones, to the point where as he gets into school, he's not really developing healthy friendships. He's more, off, and people think he's weird, especially in high school, where he tried to get friends by being funny, where he would play practical jokes, pretend that, he had a seizure or something along that
Hmm.
nature, to the point where the kids said he did it so much, they said the practical joke, they just said he's doing a Dahmer. And that's what followed him through high school. But yeah, that formidable years, that development, um, the nurturing part of it, the development part where the family line, where the mom has mental health issues, where that could come in, and as you create that perfect storm. But also at the age of 4, after having that surgery kind of going downhill, the other weird thing that happened, he's more aware than he should be at that age because of the traumas, the mom and dad always arguing, the mom not being there, always laying in bed like
Hmm.
she's depressed. Her mom,
Well,
Lionel,
wasn't she suicidal too?
yeah, Lionel Dahmer was holding him one night when the ambulance came to come pick her up from overdosing. I think it was on Equinil or something like that. And he's witnessing this. You guys got to realize, people don't realize, the kids, they see more and they hear more than we think. And we have to be careful of that. We have to keep them safe. We have to keep them safe, but we also have to know how they're feeling. We can't just neglect,
Right.
how are you feeling and how can I help you through this? We forget to do that. And those things start to develop, that fantasy world, because that's where he wants to go to be safe. But at the age of 4, his dad was bringing, there were some dead animals under the house, and Jeffrey saw that, and he became very interested in the dead animals and all of their bones and things. And this is how it developed. And then unfortunately his father saw that he loved this, but with the arguing and his mother not being there and his dad feeling guilty that he's trying to go to school,
Right.
he's almost parenting almost out of guilt, and he'll do whatever without seeing potentially what's going on. So I think that perfect storm, and I think the really big catalyst in his youth was at that age 4 with the surgery, and then witnessing his dad with the bones, and then his dad teaching him over the years of, how to strip animals and how to do all this stuff and all that. a lot of the psychology says that, there wasn't really anything about him killing animals. He liked the carcasses, but there is still that theory of the McDonald triad, where some kids, might harm animals, wet their bed into
Right.
older age, or,
Right.
be pyromaniacs and all that. A little bit of that, corresponds along with it. But I think that's his youth. That was his youth and how he developed. And from there, as he got, I think about the age of 14 was another big thing, because him not being able to develop and, seeing things the way they are, as a 14-year-old, he became a drinker. I mean, became
Yes.
a serious drinker, where he was taking it into school, and other kids would be like, "Why are you drinking gin?" And he's like, "Well, it's my medicine." So he's at the point of 14 already doing what some adults do, where life
Mm-hmm.
gets away from you
Mm-hmm.
and they want to numb it. And he's numbing, his feelings, and nobody's recognizing. There was a teacher that recognized it, but guess what? Nobody did anything about it.
But that was normal. Let's talk about the age that time period,
Yeah.
because okay, you know what? Growing up, okay, now I went in my high school years was the mid 70s, early to
Hmm.
mid 70s. You had two guidance counselors. That's it. You never had mental health. You never had a mental health therapist or a specialist. You never had that. You're lucky. Every high school had. We didn't even have guards or anything, and the doors were never locked. We had one nurse if we didn't feel good. We're talking about a time where all this went unrecognized.
Hmm.
And I think it's hard for a lot of people to go and think like that in hindsight of what it was like. I remember right now somebody that committed suicide from my class, and I remember thinking there's something wrong with him. He's acting differently. People went to
But
talk
but
to
why
teachers.
but why did you think that way?
Well, I think it was automatically what it was he was just like all of a sudden he got very, very withdrawn and he got very
Hmm.
quiet. He uh, uh, he started like bringing knives to school and
Yeah.
that sort of thing, and we just thought it was like a lot of us, we're just kids. We didn't know any better. And I know somebody actually went and talked to either an instructor or one of the guidance counselors, and it was just like superficial. It was nothing. How you feeling? You okay? Okay, go back to class. That's pretty much what
Yeah.
happened. And 3 months later, he committed suicide. So
Yeah.
it was a different times. It was just a whole different time then.
It was, but it's funny how parents parent in that nurturing around that time. You really think about it, even before, and then a lot of the parents that came home and a lot of the attachments, like I'm talking about, these are parents that went through World War II and all that, the trauma of it, and what
Korea,
they brought
yep,
home,
yep.
the alcoholism, the mistreatment, and all that, and they created that new, passed down the generation to generation, not being able to handle certain things, and the stress gets away. And I think hence, because of that, as you go generation to generation, it develops to the point what we're talking about is in the 80s was the most known serial killers that were active. And you look at that, and those are the kids of these people, Vietnam
True,
War,
true.
and really, I think war, our society, what kids are able to see nowadays. I know it's a little harder because of all the cameras and all that to get away with some of this stuff, if that's what they were thinking. But even at the time, has a person of empathy for a student, it doesn't matter what we know or not know, something's wrong. Like you just
Yes.
said, you knew something was wrong with
Hmm.
that guy. What can we do about it? Yeah, are you okay? Yeah, I know how it goes, because yeah, I grew up in during that time, Generation X, where they just kick you down the road and just put a little spit on it. But yeah, I think that's how it develops. But yeah, you get to that point, you're raising your kids, and unfortunately, nobody gives you a manual on how to do it properly.
Hmm.
There's overparenting, which some serial killers are overparented, and then there's underparenting, the neglect and all that. It's the Goldilocks thing. And All I think anybody watching right now, really, it's just keep your kids safe.
Yeah, I agree.
Listen,
I agree.
listen to them. Listen to them. Even though they're talking nonsense, you still have to listen. So without that, we're missing the opportunity.
Now, Lionel, his father, wasn't he away from home a lot? So actually, we talk about Dahmer going kind of creating that entire fantasy world.
Hmm.
I think that's pretty common for an absentee father or a mother who is suffering from depression episodes. And uh, I think that's almost like a survival instinct. That's something that's ingrained in all of us that pushes us into a different mindset so that we're not part of that whole depression, by proxy. And also, let me ask you this: we know that alcoholism is uh, really, a lot of it is because of biology. Do you
Hmm.
think that depression sometimes is that a nature or a nurture situation?
I think it's a little bit of both. It's almost like it's stuck in our DNA. Mom had it, now I have it, or it's learned at the same time.
Right.
But you're susceptible to it. But when you witness your mom laying in bed all the time, and as you get older, there's a potential that that could happen too.
Hmm.
I say this to a lot of people, easier said than done, but two things it's going to happen in your life, in your situation. It's just breaking those chains. But one or two things are going to happen. You could let life eat you alive, or you can make the effort to overcome it. So which one
Right.
do you want to do? So, and that's always the question to ask yourself while you look in the mirror, because I'm a firm believer, no matter what we go through, what we see, once we realize what we're seeing in the mirror, it's up to us. Nobody's coming to save you,
Agreed.
but you need to ask for help too, because there are people there that could give you the words, but ultimately you have to make the decision to go forward and heal and whatever you have to do.
Agreed.
And, and am I saying these serial killers, if they got that it would be different? I don't know. It's easier said than done. And to look back at things and say, hey, if this, and that, we could after we capture them. But how are we supposed to know before they do anything? And that's where it
Exactly.
comes into the childhood and being that Goldilocks type parent or anything like that.
Well, I think a lot of it comes from loneliness too. When we
Mhm.
start looking at in Dahmer's case, I think he was a peculiar kid, and he had fantasies of killing a jogger that used to run up and down the street, didn't he?
Yeah, that was the thing, was he had a fantasy of killing this jogger, and it really was when he really developed, because I think at that time, um, he's in high school, he's getting to that age of 18 when he's, really starts fantasizing about this because the jogger goes by once in a while. So, he noticed, when he hit puberty, that he liked men and all that,
Hmm.
or the boys at the time and all that. So he kind of knew that right off the bat, didn't deny it. Tried relationships, but none of that worked. But he's fantasizing about this jogger, and it really started him. That fantasy world was like, okay, I fantasize about him now. What's the next step? So he's starting to develop at that young age, just going into 18,
Hmm.
okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But then alcohol comes in, and that's what really was the catalyst for him to get, the ability to be able to do his first kill at the age of 18. But he's home alone for months
Right.
because his mom and dad divorced, and Jeffrey Dahmer's at that age of 18 where he's an adult technically. So she leaves the house with his brother, never to come back. And the dad is dating a new woman, and he's still in school, and he's away, and he's in a hotel room, and they're trying to do a relationship. He's thinking that she's still there.
Right.
And so he goes months by himself, and
Amazing.
left to his fantasy world, and nobody really there to steer him in any way at all, or to come home and say, hey, what are you doing, for him to snap back into it. There was nobody there to snap him back at that moment.
Right.
And and hence the hitchhiker. So the first person he ever killed, which I think was 1978, I think it was his first kill. And then there was a big pause in between, but that was his first taste of it. But the thing was he just wanted somebody to hang out with. This guy was
Right.
going to a concert, and say, hey, you want to come over and have some beers? I'll drive you the rest of the way. And the guy wanted to leave, and Jeffrey Dahmer didn't want him to leave because hence he's lonely, doesn't want another person to abandon him. So what does he do? He takes a 10-pound 10-pound weight from the dumbbell and all that, and hits him over the head and bludgeons him to death, and then uses his skills his dad taught him with animals and just stripped and all that, buried him at this house. And the house is like only maybe, I think, 40 minutes from where I live now in Cleveland, in that Bath, Ohio area. And the house still stands. I think it's that house, and I think that his grandmother's house. But the building where he was finally captured was demolished, and it's just like a park now or something. But those are still there, and I'd love to go in, but of course, I think because of the history of it, I don't think anybody wants anybody near there.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Now, I would say within recent months, a gentleman came forward when he was in Germany. The two of them were in a room in Germany, where he said that Dahmer, when he drank, got mean, got nasty, and beat this guy and raped him when they were in Germany several times. And when we start thinking like that, now we're starting to see someone who is becoming out of control. And again, his service, they give him a discharge.
Yeah.
And again, and like many of our veterans, unfortunately, right now, they just don't follow up. They don't follow up on these people. They just, at that time, they were just flushing him out of the system. And what did he do after the service?
Well, this is the crazy part, and this is where some of this is going to be speculation, but I'm a firm believer. I don't believe in coincidence sometimes, but the MO of Dahmer and the age of kids that later on that he molested or killed or anything like that, we're going to the point where he had gone to college. That didn't work out. He left. His father said, you're going to go in the military. He goes in the military. Of course, he gets kicked out. Now he's afraid. He actually has fear to tell his father that, oh, I got kicked out. So they give him a ticket to go anywhere. So he decides to go to Florida. So he goes to Florida to live there for a while. In the area he lived in, at the time he lived, if you guys remember the Adam Walsh story.
Yep.
Where Adam Walsh was abducted from, the mall and then found at this water area and all that. Now, if you believe this, I know it was pinned on Otis Toole, actually admitted to it, another serial killer, ugliest looking guy you'll ever see. But Dahmer, there was said that on that same day that Adam Walsh was taken, was seen at this mall. Okay. Now, the waterway where Adam Walsh's, unfortunately, his head was found was the water area that Dahmer was fishing at, that people saw him fishing at. So there's speculation. Was it true? But Dahmer, when he was caught, he confessed to everything. But he didn't confess to that. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think he actually did it, because the thing is, most people won't say that, because when you go to prison, they know you hurt a child like that, they'll kill you right away.
Right.
But the fact that when he went to prison, he didn't care what would happen to him. He knew he was caught. He was just waiting. He would tell his parents on the phone, yeah, I don't care what happens to me. If something happens, I'm not worried about it. So with that mentality, why would that matter?
Right.
So you really got to look at his behaviors on that. But I found it very interesting that he was there at the time and he was seen at those two different locations.
I did not know that. That's very interesting. Very interesting.
It's another rabbit hole to go down.
Thanks. That's what I need, Tom. Another rabbit hole. I got enough rabbit holes here right now.
I know, I'm gonna keep you up all night, Tim.
No, please. I'm working on a chapter in a book about a murder as it is as we speak. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about when he started to go and he began his how can we even describe it? When he began his rampage, that's the best way I'm going to be able to describe it. When he, what was he?
I,
What was he looking? Was he cruising? Was he looking for a specific type? Did he, you know, what was he looking for in a victim?
well, a lot of it yeah, he was out cruising, going to gay bars, and there was bathhouses that
Mm-hmm.
he would go into. Unfortunately, he was very aggressive, and he was kicked out of these bathhouses. So he needed to meet people or take them somewhere. But at the time when he was discharged Florida, then came back finally because he ran out of money, and sent to live with his grandmother in Wisconsin. So he wasn't in Ohio anymore. So he's out in Wisconsin, and he's trying to date these women. They're bringing him back to the grandmother's house, and grandmother's, she has no idea what's going on. He's actually killing people in his grandmother's house and then dismembering them. And some of them he liked so much that he decided to keep, parts of them. And of course, he would take these parts when he moved to his apartment with him. So he had them for a while. There were so many disturbing things, and one of the jobs he had, he would bring a mannequin home with him. Was another weird thing. It was almost like, this is my man, this is my friend. He won't leave me. He can't abandon me.
My
There's
God.
always these little things
Wow,
that
that's
went
that's
towards that.
that's so similar to the Fox
Hmm.
Hollow Farm murders with the mannequins and being not wanting to be alone
Yeah,
psychologically. That to me is amazing, and it almost points to a point where this is an individual who has a hole in his soul basically, and when he starts to drink, it's almost as if this childhood trauma, is actualizing and coming forth and reaching out into the human race where it becomes where now do you think he was schizophrenic or bipolar in any way? Because it's almost as because his neighbors said he was basically a quiet guy and nicer guy. Some people always describe him as okay, but it's almost as if like it becomes a different personality.
yeah. Well, let's really jump into it. He didn't have what you would diagnose as full schizophrenia because he didn't
Uh-huh.
fit that. But there is a type, schizotypal disorder that's close to schizophrenia. It's a class A type of mentality and all that with your borderline personality disorders. Now, with that, it really shows that you have a hard time making friends. Things are kind of a little stranger, and
Mhm.
sometimes in you have that feel of um, that you want to be in control and those types of things, that you want to control a lot of things. It's an attention thing almost too, where you get the attention the wrong way, like he would do in college, high school with doing the
Right.
Dahmer. His jokes were actually not in good taste, but his mother was almost the same way. The mother needed attention too. She would do these like hypochondriac type of things. So it's almost like he carried it over. It's known if people want to look into it. So the schizotypal and that disorder there, but a lot of it, even what you're talking about, the psychotic disorder. I think the alcohol put him into that psychosis, and why he
Mhm.
really switched and changed. It's almost like that psychotic disorder is almost like your Jekyll and Hyde.
Right.
Jeffrey
Right.
Dahmer could be this charming, nice guy, but then add alcohol to it, or add, you know, that you be, you're Jekyll and Hyde, and that's part of a personality disorder too. So,
Now it's kind of unique when you start talk when you were talking about him taking these trophies
mhm.
from one place from his grandmother's house to this apartment building. I think my question is this something that's common with most serial killers, or they might not even be serial killers. Maybe they're just maybe they are murderers is this something that is the taking of trophies commonplace and normal for them to do?
Well, there's a lot of serial killers because of the fantasy, and he was so into fantasy and all that. There are different disorders. The reason why they keep trophies is sometimes to relive that
Right.
moment, whether it be sexual or whether it be a power thing, and knowing that if they feel like they're losing power, they could pull that trophy out or remember the power they had over that
Hmm.
person, or the sexual fantasy of, seeing it again and remembering. Like Dahmer took a lot of Polaroids of the body parts of naked men that he killed and all that, which
That's true.
subsequently was
That's
used as a
true.
lot of evidence and being able
Yeah.
to know who some of these people were that were cut up and all that. So yeah, there you go, right there. So,
That's one of the crime scene photos that I found on the internet that I
mhm.
wanted to share with people. Now, when he moved, is that when he moved to this apartment? Is that when things started to really, really ramp up?
I think that was the moment because the thing is, just before he went to that apartment, a lot of people don't know is he was caught, sexually molesting a young boy and got caught for that. He actually went to prison for a little bit and, got out, of course, on good behavior, released out. And then, his grandmother was like, yeah, you got to get your own place. So he finally gets his own place. And I think it's really when he got to that place and going to all these gay bars and meeting people, bringing them back to there. I think that's where he really spiraled,
Right.
and that's where things just, I think, for him got away. There's always that catalytic, that gets you to think this way. There's the catalyst to get you to start doing it. And then there's the catalyst for you to unwind and finally be captured. And I think that's when he got to that apartment 213 there in good old Wisconsin. And, that's where it started going haywire for him. Really, nobody there at all, just him in the apartment, whoever was nearby, the neighbors or anything like that.
Hmm.
And I mean, as the neighbors like were interviewed and talked about it, there was just weird times where he's got body parts in this apartment. Nobody knows. People are complaining about the smell coming from there. Nobody's really doing anything about it, to the point where, you know, uh, he's got his men in there and he starts trying to, you know, again, doesn't want to be alone.
Right.
So what does he
Right.
start doing? Is this okay? They're fighting with me, so now I'm gonna just knock them out. I'm gonna drill a hole in their head, and I'm gonna put acid in there. I'm gonna try and see if I could turn them into my zombies, so they don't leave me. But of course, they're dying. you,
Right.
you can't drill a hole
Right.
and put acid on somebody's brain. But the thing is that's what he was doing, and I think really from that point where he couldn't do that, and after years of studying, and I think other people have said this, but I never really heard him say it this way. And I think it's one of my discoveries. I really look at it with that abandonment issue. I think that's really what made him a cannibal. Because you think about it, I can't get them to be
Right.
zombies. I can't get them to stay with me. What else in my fantasy could I do? If I consume them, their DNA is forever with me and they're never going anywhere.
Right.
And it might be the reason why he became a cannibal in my mind, and just behavioral wise, looking at it, what he was going through. And as you pick the brain apart and see that, that's really, I think, for me, a definitive answer. Is it exactly correct? I don't know. Jeffrey Dahmer is not around anymore. So I don't know what he would have to say to
Right.
that. So, but that's really kind of where you go at, to the point where somebody commented, the poor neighbor, yeah, when they were complaining and all that, he wanted to calm things down. So he was trying to be nice to his neighbors. He says, "Oh, here you guys, I'm going to I'm going to make sandwiches and give you sandwiches." Now the neighbors are wondering what was in that sandwich.
Yeah. Really.
Because again, was he pulling a Dahmer on them and actually putting, because of his way he thought, it's just crazy. And he did have that need for control. You really look at one of the guys, the guy that escaped, said it was forced to watch Poltergeist 3 while he was, handcuffed up before he
Hmm.
escaped. But also Dahmer was very interested in Return of the Jedi, Emperor Palpatine, because he looked like he had the power to control everybody. Now, Dahmer started getting into things, and this is where it kind of really goes haywire and goes downhill. That abandonment issues, but now the need for control, which could happen. All right. Now he's trying to control. Now he's starting to build an altar with the body parts, with the skulls, and using the
Oh,
acid
that's
and all.
right.
So he's building this altar to show his
And here's
power and all that.
this is the sketch that they found. This
Yeah,
is
that's what he wanted
this is
to build it as. So
that's
you're looking at an occult side, his watching Poltergeist 3 over and over again and wondering, some people say, what overcame him? Did he open himself up to
right.
something beyond our knowledge? We don't know. Did something pop in to put him in a situation where this would stop? Did something intervene? That's where you get on the supernatural side of things. But he wanted the supernatural side of things. When you put an altar up like that, and
Yes,
you
he
and I
did.
both know that whatever intention you put into that altar is what your consequences. There's consequences of what you put out into the universe. And I think ultimately he being captured in that house because one of those men that he killed, of the 17 men or boys that he killed, escapes, gets the police to come back.
Right.
And I give this guy a lot of credit. He actually came back with the police. I'd be petrified. I wouldn't want to go back in there. But he brought him back in, and the police went back, found the photos, and then opened the refrigerator. And then, you know, the shock that the law enforcement must have had. You go in a house, a guy complaining that some guy like handcuffed me, and then you find that's like a whole nother, ball of wax there.
Well, he had a barrel, wasn't it? A barrel of some kind of acid so he could dissolve the
Yeah,
flesh.
yeah, the hydrochloric acid that he had, because he was using it for multiple things. But yeah, to dissolve, there you go, dissolve the flesh and all that, because he wanted to make it perfect.
Right.
He wanted to control, but he wanted perfection too on top of it. A lot of this, mental illness that he had, you know, there was also people said, he had necrophilia and all that. But yeah, there was occasions that he would, have sex with dead bodies, but it wasn't something pure. It was more paraphilia, which is more of you're weirder having sex with like inanimate objects and things like that. It's
Right.
more of that
Right.
as opposed to which, he had an unhealthy sexual relationship with things. And, that's another part of his psychosis.
But can you imagine being the law enforcement walking in there and then finding all these body parts? This is now I'm going to warn everybody. This is pretty graphic. This is something that was found in his refrigerator.
Yeah.
These are you can make up on the top shelf. You can make up a human skull, a human head, up on the left, and then you
Hmm.
can also make out a few human organs that he had in there. And this is just a small amount. This is just a small display
Yeah.
of what he had. And did he? Wait a minute. He had a freezer, right? I think I got a picture of the freezer, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere. Um, but I mean, he had everything. Like, did not. Now, here's my question. Was he not afraid of being discovered because of the smell and all that? Because there had to be an odor to it. Or was he just at that point where he was immune from it, where he just was like, it didn't matter?
See, a lot of people don't realize is Dahmer, even though he didn't have a lot of friends and all that, he was very manipulative too. On
Right.
top of it, being able to, and then wanting control and trying to learn control, really, I think, of course, he's immune to the smell because he's living in it. All of us, we go in our house and we live
True.
there. So we lose our
True.
sense of how our house smells until somebody comes over. You hope it smells good, but you get used to it. Um, with him, it's just, it's crazy because I don't think he cared at that point. Really, to tell you the truth, like I said, at that moment, he was spiraling, and just going downhill. I think it was inevitable that he knew he was going to get caught. It was just a matter of when. And, there were so many different situations where he tried to drill a frontal lobe hole into a young boy. And the young boy, I can't
Right.
pronounce his
Right.
name. He's the young, Laos boy. And the
Yes.
thing is his older brother was the one that Dahmer molested to go to jail for to begin with. I don't know how the hell he ends up with this kid again, or his brother, should have known better, saying, this is the guy my brother was molested by. But the thing is he tried to drill a hole in him, and Dahmer went to go get more beer, and somehow he had the capacity to get up and leave. And these girls found him, naked on the road, and the police came over, and they just let him go back with Dahmer, saying, "Oh, it's just a
Yeah.
domestic and all that." It's like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That's the thing is I know this is back in, the 80s. And again, some of the police with the homosexuals and all that, they didn't want
Right.
to deal with it. They didn't want to deal with it. So it was a totally different category at the time. It wasn't acceptable. It's
And
like, I
and
don't want to
and
just
not
take
to
them
be
home. Just
and
take them
not to
home. I don't want to deal with it.
and not to be gross by it, but a lot of the police at that time,
Hmm.
when it came to gray any kind of gay crime,
Yeah.
they were just like, do whatever the hell you want, kill yourselves off.
Hmm.
I mean the term that they use is, instead of homicide, homicide. And
Yeah.
that was used, and that was a pretty universal slang that was used in many of the departments over the years. So they were just like, we don't really care. We don't want to be involved with it. Now, he's caught. They send him to, court-ordered psychologists. He's found sane enough for trial, correct?
He is, and he was sane. A lot of us, a lot of people, any of us, we have mental health issues. But the thing is the reason why he was found sane is because he would set his house up. He knew he was bringing people back. He knew what he was going to do.
Right.
It wasn't an
Right.
insane thing where it was a spur of the moment and just do this. It's calculated. I'm going to go out to this bar tonight. I'm going to meet someone. I'm going to take him home. I'm going to take pictures, and then I'm going to kill him. He has this
Right.
plan, all this stuff set up. So all of us, there's people that have depression, they have mental illness and all. Are they insane? No, they're not. There's a huge hard to prove criteria for that,
Right.
especially in these situations, because you've already planned it.
Exactly.
You planned it, and you're guilty, and he confessed. And the thing is when a lot of people don't realize is a lot of serial killers, everybody thinks they're these smart, like, people. They know exactly what they're doing. Majority tested after they're captured. They're all tested IQ wise and all that. And most of them are under 90, and
Hmm.
but Dahmer was very high. He was one of the more intelligent serial killers, which told me, even with everything going on, he knew how to manipulate the situation with his intelligence.
Right.
We look at it, oh, he's crazy, but he was manipulating everything so he could have his fantasies and all that, and try and make it look normal, uh, to what he perceives as the way normal people are, where he could
Hmm.
hide what he's doing. But he finally got caught. And, it is. People are always going to get caught. You just wish it was never to that point, and you hope that these police officers, if they did their job that day, there should be 5 or 6 more people still alive.
I agree. I agree.
And
Now,
yeah,
he was convicted, and he had to serve 16 life sentences, correct?
yeah,
Now,
or yeah. Originally, he was convicted of 15,
right.
but then with the confession, and they dug up the yard in Ohio and found the first person he killed. So then he was, a year later, went back and
Right.
was convicted of the 16th, but not the full 17. So,
Now, let's talk about his last days. Uh
mm,
Now, see, a lot of people don't realize that when you're in prison, you're not locked. Well, most people are not locked in 23 hours of the day. they have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And Dahmer, now I'm going to ask you, and you would probably know better than me. He has jobs, but something that he used to do to aggravate other convicts.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't he used to go and make his, kind of replay with his food and make it into body parts? Is that popular myth, or did he actually do that?
So from witnesses and some of the corrections officers and all that, and what they could say, what they can't say, but there
Right,
was
right.
several corroborating people that said that he would taunt people by doing that, to the point everybody hated him. They just wanted to kill the guy. But I'm looking at it this, I don't think he wanted to be in jail.
Do you
He
think
was like
that
actually inviting people to kill him,
to
I
try to
think.
kill him,
Mhm.
it's almost like suicide by cop, primarily? What he was trying to do
Exactly.
is instigate and hope that someone would finally
Yeah.
do
Well,
the
he
killing.
aggravated everybody. He was aggravating even the officers. Now, you want to look at a lot of the cases, it's like, oh, geez, how did this guy hang himself if nothing was in the
Right,
cell and nobody was around and those types of things. How did he do this? How did he do that? Dahmer had a guard with him at all times, that would walk with him. But at
right,
that fateful day when he was doing his, they were cleaning this men's locker room of the place or whatever, and it was him, another inmate, and then Christopher Scarver, who was actually did diagnose with schizophrenia, said God told me to kill both of them.
yeah,
So, but he killed Dahmer. He actually had a pole. Actually, he hid the pole, knowing he was going to do this too. On top of it, never mind the schizophrenia, but beat him to death. And he said Dahmer never cried out, never said a
no,
word. He expected it.
yeah,
But the guards weren't there. It was almost like the guards are done. It says, we don't want this guy anymore. You guys do whatever the hell you want, whatever's going to happen. Let's see if something happens, and unfortunately there are unscrupulous people in the prison system and all that would allow that. I know some other people are happy, but the other thing that got me was because he took him. But you want to know something really crazy? Let's get away from the psychology, just the weird coincidence. So back when he was in prison, so this is, I think, what, 94 or something like that. And there was a lunar, or I think a solar eclipse, partial solar eclipse going on. On that same day, Dahmer was becoming a born again Christian in prison. He was getting baptized at the same time John Wayne Gacy was being put to death a couple states away, all on the same day.
that's that's eerie.
It
That is
is.
so eerie. Hey, I got a question
Mhm.
from my friend Heather. What's the statistic of serial killers to population? It's interesting how some people uh, veer so horribly off course.
It's very rare. It's very rare. They think that at one time in the United States, there's a close to 300 people that are possibly active serial killers. So 300 to our population, that's a very, very low number. I
Mm-hmm.
think the scariest number is we have to really look at our society, what information gets put out there, and even over the years, and how this country is and what we see and what happens behavior wise and how we're taught in school. You look at all that stuff.
Right,
Do you
right.
realize out of all the captured serial killers in history, and statistically 70% of all serial killers are in the United States as opposed to the rest of the world? The next closest, I think, is England, and only like a 3%. So,
That's scary.
mhm,
That is scary. It's almost as if it is a nature versus nurture situation here,
mhm, yeah.
and the influences that we do have. I can't believe we're running out of time. God, this has been fabulous. Hey,
Stay
tell them.
tuned for part two.
No, there will be a part two. You know
Yeah.
that. What's going on? How they can get a hold of you? Tell uh, the upcoming Connecticut Paracon that's coming up.
Well, the great thing is we're talking about Jeffrey Dahmer and all that, which is great. But this Saturday coming up, I know we're watching this live now. Later on Paraflex, it'll be after the fact. But Connecticut Paracon is July 11th. It's Saturday in North Haven, Connecticut. And the reason why I kind of smirk is good friends of mine, Danny and Lauren Perez. They're known as the Radicals. They collect troublesome objects, and they will be at Connecticut Paracon. And in their collection is one of the forks confiscated from Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment when he was arrested.
Oh my
So
God.
you'll be able to come and see that to carry on our conversation of Jeffrey Dahmer. Anybody that's nearby, go on the www.paracon2ends because it's Connecticut.org. Get your ticket and get your chance to see the Jeffrey Dahmer fork. So,
I would definitely go.
yeah, that's my email down there. I'm part of the Shaman and the Showman. We're a global events duo and do, Connecticut Paracon. And then when this probably goes on Paraflix, you'll have the opportunity to come to our Connecticut Witch and Culture Festival in Hartford, Connecticut, August 8th and 9th. And then November 14th will be our annual Salem Horror Convention in Salem, Massachusetts. So make sure you join us up there. But more importantly, I think the exclusive, I gave it away last night. I didn't save it for you, Tim, unfortunately, but
It's okay. It's okay.
So my better half, Stacia Wills, Kenneth Drake, the Hollywood psychic, we are going to attempt a Guinness Book of World Records by doing the largest seance on top of the world largest talking board on top of the Grand Midway Hotel. That'll be coming
a great
up.
place. That's a great place. I can't wait.
October 3rd, we're going to start selling tickets soon. We got so much stuff coming up. I mean, a lot of stuff in October. We'll, I think, potentially be at Wilson Castle doing some crazy stuff too. So, but stay tuned to Wardruna and the Shaman.
It's going to be great.
And the Showman and what we have up our sleeves.
And you might be surprised. I might take a little jaunt down to Windber, Pennsylvania, to the Grand Midway, who I love. Anyway, guys, we got to go. Hold on the line, my friend. Hold on the line, and I'll be back because this was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Be right back. Guys, amazing. It's an amazing show with an amazing guest. So all I'm going to tell you is, even though we were talking about serial killers, be kind, be good. We'll see you next week. Take care, my friends. And remember, Black Cat Lounge, where the elite meet, next to the dumpster transfer station. Ciao, babies. Bye-bye.